Hi, I'm John. This is my show, A Sports Reckoning. So, on Raul, Steven said that he liked how I say Raul's name and shit, right? It's because I had a friend that had come over from Iran and shit, so when I was young, it was one of those things like, because they had that thing with the, in around 1980, the Iranian hostage thing and shit, right? The embassy, the American embassy thing in Iran, and then the Ayatollah took over and shit. I mean, I know some stuff, little stuff about it. It's hard when you start go back and talking about it, you start, it's like, oh wait, what was that guy's name and shit? Because you start, it's like you try to remember the names. It's a little bit tricky and stuff, right? So, anyways, I could always go mumbling. I get just always turned into just like start rambling about this, rambling about that, just so easy and stuff, right? Things are, but so. Okay, so I was really busy. I'm always busy and shit, right? I mean, I assume that people know that I take care of my dad. My dad's got Alzheimer's. So there's things about that, too. It's like that people don't understand. It's like, okay, look, I've been taking care of my dad for, it's way over 10 years now and shit, right? It's been a long time. It's like 12, 13 years. It's weird when you would think about it. It's like, to think about it was that long ago that he freaking... because my dad crashed his car. What had happened is he was like living in Bellflower at that time and shit. He was still in LA and shit because I'm out in the desert. And but so he had crashed his car, and there's like things that happened too. It's like weird. It's like, see, my dad, he was a total blow it, right? And like when I was younger, like so when I was in high school, so there's so many. Life is just so fucking weird and shit, right? It's like. You look back and it's like there's like just all these little sections and it's like that was part of my life and then that was my life and then this, you know, and you look back on all the things and how people live their lives and it's like, I don't know, my life was just always just, I don't know. That's the only way I can explain it is I don't know. It was just kind of like, I don't know. Like, I grew up in, I'd have friends that had good families and shit, right? Oh, I didn't the one thing about Raul is I say my friend from Iran. To see, I get sidetracked because talk about that. I remember when he came into, because I was in Downey at the time. I remember my friend that came to school, and it was funny because at the time there was two of them actually. There was two guys from Iran and shit came to our school around the same time. But then I've asked my one friend. I was like, dude, when you came to school, you spoke English. I was like, you spoke English and shit, right? And he said, yeah. Well, he said he had went to like London or something like that. He was in London for like a year before he came to America after they fled Iran and shit, whatever. And but so my friend, his parents were from Iran, right? So they spoke. They had to have an accent and shit, right? Well, just is kind of frequent. Like, just somebody like LT in this thing, he had mentioned that he says he's Asian, right? Okay, but so, the people that are like American, it's like, now I don't know that LT was born in America, but he sure as hell's been raised in America because he's total American, right? Because, so there's like this thing that's like, okay, like the thing I had encountered a lot is like being from LA and I'd have friends and stuff. And so, you meet a kid and they're American. They're basically, now like even my friend, he wasn't born in America. But he's just so American, growing up, and he spoke English and didn't have an accent really like that and shit, right? But his parents were from Iran, right? And so you run into there's like a difference with like the immigrants that come over, they're like real part of the place they were from. They still have all that culture in them. They speak the language. They have their heavy accent. But then their child who's born in America, that person's American. They're raised in American culture and shit, right? And they show the characteristics and traits of an American. And so it's one of these things is that, like with people with all the races and whatever, it's like I clearly know the difference between somebody raised in American, like you might have Asian ancestry or Mexican ancestry, whatever it's from, right? It's not the same. American we're a race. And this is like shit that pisses me off, like on the... what's that thing they do where they do the population count of the people? There's that thing, they send it out every 4 years, every 10 years, whatever it is, and they tell you got to mark down how many people live in your house. And so we just did one of these not too long ago, right? And it came to the race thing, right? So this thing, I'm filling it out now, right? So I'm filling this shit out. And it said about like the race, and it said, say what race you are. And it's like, okay, well... my dad's my dad's father was an immigrant from Italy and shit, right? So my ancestry and my name, that would be like my origin of my last name, would be Italian and shit, right? But even, it's not even the same name. My grandfather Americanized it. His actual name was shortened into a different version. It has an Americanized version of it, right? And so it's like, they want me to put that. They said, you can't put, this is the shit that's like the world, this thing that, this leftist stuff, the little subtlety things of how they're fucking screwing up America. And they're getting the people not to understand that we're Americans, man. This is a new race. It's a new race of people. But people are having a hard time dealing with that. And then because we do have full of all these different cultures in America, then they're kind of trying to claim like that we're not a race of people. And so like I said, on that census, the census, that's the name. One thing I've always learned and stuff is like when I'm thinking of something, if the word doesn't come to me, what I have to do is I have to stop thinking about it. And then you just talk through your normal conversation and then the word pops into your head, the census, right? And then I don't know, but that's how it works. I don't know exactly what so it's like, so when you're trying to think of something, I stop thinking about it. If it doesn't come to me instantly, boom, I stop thinking about it and then it'll just pop in my head, right? So I was taking the census, and the census is saying, you're not American. You're not an American. This is what it was telling me. The census was telling me, you're not a real American. If you're not a Native American Indian, if you're not a Native American Indian, then you're not a real American. And it's like, wait, the Native Americans, there was no America back then, so how the fuck do they get the right to claim themselves as real Americans? Just because it's of the land, but that wasn't America. This is America. What the fuck? I mean, these are these weird things that go on, right? And so, in America, I love the fact that we're so cultured, right? But this is like the kind of shit where they're trying to say like end racism, and it's like, oh, so what? You don't want there to be a Chinatown? You don't want there to be an East LA that's like Mexico? It's like, I like that, but see, like if you go in East LA, I spend a lot of time in East LA and shit, right? Because that's kind of where I'm from, in that area and shit. So I spend lots of time in East LA, but that's America. I've been to Mexico too, and even though East LA can represent a lot of Mexico and shit, it's not Mexico. That's fucking LA. And there's a lot of serious, real Mexican people and shit. It doesn't matter. That's America. It's a difference and shit, right? But yeah, so the census thing was telling me, the census said you're not an American. You can't put on this that you're an American. They said you have to, and so it's like, well, so I have to claim that I'm Italian? What the fuck do I know about Italy? And my grandfather left that country to come here to America and did not teach my father to speak Italian. My dad doesn't speak Italian. So I have to respect his wishes that he didn't want to be. He wanted to be more American culture than he wanted to be the culture than what he was from. He decided that this culture was something he wanted to be a part of it. This America was going to provide opportunities and stuff for him to build a family and a future, like all that stuff. So I respect that shit, right? But yeah, I still want there to be a little Italy. But my grandfather too, he was on I seen like an old photo. I have an old photo of him, and he's on a soccer team. It's like it's called like Little Italy soccer team, but they're like, probably in the Long Beach area, around that area and shit, right? But so, I'm not, it's just like this stuff, but they're American. But so I like the fact that we have all the different cultures in America, but those people are American, and you get to experience the culture, and so they get to feel connected to their culture. It's like, there's a rambling, but so, like the census thing saying I'm not American, right? And I was looking at it, and it kept telling me, it was pounding. This is the shit, the subtle things of like that leftist and this propaganda stuff of things that go on, little things like this, and how they're trying to undermine the reality and that you're American, that we are Americans, we are a new race of people, and this is the kind of thing because they're all racist because they say no. To be an actual country, you all have to look the same. You basically have to be all the same color. And if you're not all the same color, then you can't be a real country. That's like what they're saying, right? And it's like, and these idiots are out there screaming at us that we're racist and shit because we want to be American, right? Because no, we're American. We support the American flag and shit. This is America. This is the country that we're from. This is our country. And it doesn't matter. It's like, I'll be the first one to say, dude, okay, but why the fuck are we sending all the money to the Ukraine? Oh, I have to mention one thing. Just like if I say to you people, what country was the Chernobyl nuclear plant disaster? If I say to you, what country was Chernobyl in, right? Because a lot of people, even though people are so dumb, they don't even know basic fucking history and shit, right? But Chernobyl is such a big event that I'm going to assume that most people have a understanding that there was a Chernobyl nuclear disaster, right? So if I say to you, oh yeah, you know that Chernobyl, that fucking nuclear disaster? If I say to you, what country was that in? I'm just going to assume that everybody's going to say, that was in Russia. Okay, but go look where Chernobyl's at. It's in the Ukraine. Okay, because that's when it was back to the USSR. Back in the USSR, right? So that's in the that was in the Ukraine. That's in the Ukraine. That's one of these just little subtle fucking things about understanding the reality about. Well, is Ukraine part of Russia? You know, well, it's like, well, Chernobyl's in Ukraine, and every single person out there, if you asked them the question, where's Chernobyl, wouldn't you all answer that it's in Russia? It's like just little things like that. But so we can send all this fucking money over to the Ukraine, but we can't fucking build up the fucking Indian reservations and fully modernize them and incentivize. How come we don't pay we should pay the Native Americans? Because people always talk all the shit. Well, why don't you do something for them then? Why don't you do something? You say, oh, well, here's your land, do for yourselves. That's all they do. But we can send all this money to the Ukraine. We can't do anything for them. Like, it should be totally incentivized that a Native American woman and a Native American man, so if it's pure blood Native Americans, because we totally wiped them out. We murdered them. That race of people was like almost on the verge of extinction and shit, right? You know, the people bitching about everything. It's like the black people and the slaves. But you weren't in slavery. You guys were not murdered to the point of extinction. So whatever injustice happened with you is nothing compared to what happened to the Native Americans, right? So the Native Americans and shit. Why don't we incentivize a Native American woman into a Native American man? So we got Native American blood. Why don't we incentivize, because we own this, and say every child that you have with that bloodline will give you instantly $1 million. Every child instantly gets a $1 million trust fund. So when that kid turns 18, they get $1 million, and then we'll give you like $5,000 a month. You know, you get like $5,000 a month for every child, plus we'll instantly put in the bank account $1 million that they get it when they're 18, because we want to help build up the fucking Indian population, right? Nobody's throwing those ideas out. How many times you heard them in Congress saying, we've got a bill here to rebuild the fucking Native American culture, and when's that bill being fucking offered up? Who's passing this? They don't pass any fucking laws. They're fucking scum. They're trash and shit, right? So, yeah, so the reason I was talking, I think, was the census and shit. Like I said, they kept saying that I'm not an American on the census and shit. It's like, oh, why am I Italian? I'm not Italian. My grandfather comes from Italy, and just because of that, now that makes me Italian? I mean, I have Italian heritage. My name is Italian. But we're American, and we are from all over the world, and we're all colors in here. We're all American. It's just okay. So I was rambling on. I could get all sidetracked by all kinds of shit, right? Oh yeah, that's funny. I went on that whole thing because Splenda Steve likes the way I say Raul. Because that's what I was saying. So I had my friend, and his friend is I'll call my friend Pete. His name's Pete because he was Americanized, right? But he had a real name that was Iranian. He had a real Iranian name. And so when we go to his house, because we knew him as Pete, right? His name's Pete. But when we go to his house, his dad would call him by his real name, right? With that accent and shit, right? So it was so when I say Raul, it reminds me of my friend, the way I would say his real name, his Iranian name. Okay. So I was just going on. So really quick, just mentioning on this live stream last night, I'm super busy last night. So one of the things I have to do, I cook dinners and shit. I have to cook food. Like, it's one of these things, like, nobody's cooked me dinner in over a year and shit. I can't, when I say that, is I haven't even eaten at a fast food place. It's been it's been over a year since I've even stopped at a fast food place, because I just don't have the time to even stop there, and then my dad doesn't. Most of those stuffs, but actually some of them stuff, like the double cheeseburgers, McDoubles and shit, because that's more of a softer. I can cut it up and shit. But some of the other, like if you get a patty like from Burger King, where it's more like a patty, might be a little bit harder and shit, right? I got to cut all that shit up for my dad into small pieces and shit so he can eat it and stuff, right? But so that's what I just cook. I do all the cooking and stuff, right? But so like last night, I was cooking. And I had these 2 big London broils and shit, right? So it was like over 4 pounds. It was like over 4 pounds of London broil and shit that I was cooking. And then, so I always cook it with rice. So I had like, you know, I had like 3 cups of rice I had to cook up and stuff. So I always cook rice and then I'll cook the steak. And so what I'll do is I'll cook it at night because it takes a long time. And then I'll put it in a big thing and it'll be ready. So then like today, then all I do today is I have some potatoes. I'll throw some potatoes in the microwave. So they're like baked potatoes. You know, I get the potatoes, microwave them, boom, 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 warm up the fucking stuff that I cooked from the night before. I put that together, and then that'll be our dinner meal, you know, our dinner meal for like the next 5 days. It'll last at least 5 days, the batch I made last night. But last night, so I got to cut that up. I got to cut that London broil, like 4 pounds. It was a couple big ass London broils and shit, right? I gotta cut that into small little shreds and shit, right? Little pieces. And fuck, it would take it forever last night, right? So I was doing that. It took like 2.5 hours to cook it and get it all cut up. Cause then I gotta marinate, or it's not marinate, I'm stabbing it with all the fucking seasoning and shit and stabbing it. What's that called, man? That's marinate, whatever, but you got to go through the whole process. You know, I got to cut up onions and shit. I cook and shit pretty good. It's just good eating. It's just good. But so yeah, I was doing that last night. It was taking forever and shit. I even got like almost some blisters on my fingers and shit, cutting up that fucking London broil fucking something. The last times I made London broil, the meat came out a little softer, but then last night I did 2 other things. I added a little bit more water to the A1 sauce to put some more juice in the pan when I'm cooking it and shit. I put A1 sauce, but I mix it with water. I always dilute it. So I'll take a 10-ounce bottle of A1, and then I'll put it into the measuring cup, and then so I put the A1 in there, and then I turn it into like 2 cups, a little bit more than 2 cups of juice and shit, and pour it all over the steak, cook it in that. But then last night, because those London broils were so big, I added a little bit of extra water to it and just to give it some more juice and shit in there. And so I did that, and then I cooked it an extra 5 minutes on the backside. So because I cook it the way I do it, and then but the London broil was so thick and shit, right? And then the way I've cooked it before too, it seemed like it came out a little bloody. It would have a little bit of that taste of the blood, which I don't like. So I wanted to cook it just a little bit more to kind of hopefully I could get rid of that blood taste and shit, which I think I did that. I think that came out right. But then, so like I said, when I flipped it over, I cook it on the one side for all the time, but then when I flip it over, I usually just do like 10 minutes. When I'm doing like ribeyes and stuff like that, I'll flip it over, 10 minutes there, boom, and that's like the second side. But I went ahead and let it go for 15 minutes and shit. You know, it's like I said, I was trying to get that blood out of there and stuff, which I did, but then it's like, and then so the other times when I cooked the London broil, it was coming apart real easy and stuff, right? Real soft, you know? And, but it was a little bit tougher last night, and so I don't know if it was a combination of a little extra juice, and maybe because it was the one that's as thick as the... Oh, and also when I flipped it over, when I was seasoning the stuff, and on the meat tenderizer, on the back side, the little bottle ran out. I only got about half of what I would have normally put on there. Then I just didn't feel like opening another bottle. So I was like, well, I got enough. I've got the other side, and then I'm going to put the onion salt and the fucking garlic salt on there and stuff. Right, so... But that could have done it. Maybe I didn't get enough meat tenderizer on there too because it's so thick and shit. I don't know. It's just funny and shit, right? But so yeah, I had to get that all cooked up. So while these guys were doing their live stream, then there's the thing. It's like my computer is in my room and stuff. I don't have it hooked up to any other TVs. Everything's in my room. And then right now we're getting more into like the summertime and shit. So I'll have the fans going, and then I really can't hear when the fans are all going because in the living room, like I have a floor fan that's pretty loud. But so you go from my room and then out to the kitchen, like if I'm working. Actually, plus when I'm cooking and stuff, I got the stereo blaring and shit. I like to, when I'm in there cooking, I have a stereo in the living room, so I'm got the stereo blaring and shit, right? But so I can't listen to the show or whatever. And then, but so the guys were there. So then when I came in, then they're still doing the show. It was like 2 hours into it. It said streaming for 2 hours and shit, right? So then I started talking on the conversation, but I started watching it from the front because it's like, well, I want to see this whole thing, right? I want to watch the whole thing, and I only have limited times of where I'm going to be able to watch a kind of long thing like this. So what I did, I was going to try and watch it all night, but that's the other thing too, is like, I work so hard. It's one of these things like when I was young, and I'd be like, I can't sleep, I need weed and shit, right? But now it's like one of these things, like I work so hard, I'm up in the morning, I have to go all the way to night until I put my dad to bed and shit. I'm so tired, I just crash out. I crash. I'm so fucking tired at night. I'm tired and shit, right? And like another thing is like, I do this work, I've been taking care of my dad, like I said, for over 10 years and shit, right? And so I don't get paid for what I do, all right? Because it's one of these things like, these like things where shit's like, so when I first came, when I moved my dad out to where I'm at, my dad's an idiot too. There's shit about, it's like, he never wanted to do anything for me. My dad tried his hardest to make sure that he had no fucking money. So if he died, I was not going to get any money. He like tried to do that. He wanted, it's like weird shit with like, this kind of shit where like when I don't trust people and the weird things and stuff, weird, because I deal with the family shit, weird shit. It's like, why'd you do that? It's like when I was in high school, like, so like when in high school, I lived with my mom most of my life, but then had problems, and then she moved away from the city, like the Downey, where I was really from. We'd moved away, but my dad had moved to Downey because he was living more like in Long Beach area. But then he had moved to Downey, and he had bought a house because his mother had started to suffer from Alzheimer's, and so he had bought a house with her in Downey and shit, right? And then so then I moved back to Downey and stuff, but I didn't. So then I knew that my grandma was suffering from Alzheimer's, but what I didn't know that my dad had a fucking horrible cocaine problem at that time and shit, right? So it's like, you know, people. So you got all these people with their families and they're going to school and all this stuff, and it's like, okay, but yeah, in my house here, my grandma's got Alzheimer's and my dad's got a fucking cocaine problem and shit, and this is the world I live in, and so it's like everything's just weird and shit, right? So it's just like. And but I was popular though. Like in school, I would have been a popular kid. I was friendly. You know, a lot of people knew me, and shit. I got along with everybody and shit. You know, I was good looking, so I had a lot of attention from girls and shit, right? So, and I was, like I said, grew up mostly around that area, so I knew everybody and stuff, right? But so that's what I'm just saying. Like life was just weird and shit, and like things like it's like I said, my dad, he literally, like when I say it's like, yeah, my dad was hooked on cocaine and he was blowing all my grandma's money on fucking hookers from Compton. And it's like, when I say that, that's exactly what the fuck it was. Because my dad, at that time, he was still working at Compton College and shit, right? But he was getting bad. His drug addiction he was getting so bad where he's one of those people that started picking his face and shit. And then he started having like all those fucking sores on his face. Like one time I got arrested. I got arrested as stupid kids doing stupid shit. And then so it was the second time I got arrested, and I went to court, and then the guy, I had to do some kind of work program stuff, right? But to go to the work program, my dad had to go like check me in and shit, right? Because I was a minor. So my dad had to go sign me in. But he's like all wasted on coke. He was a real full-blown addict at that time and shit, right? So I ended up not going to the fucking work thing, so I had to go back to court. Then when I went back to court, my dad had to come with me, and when he came with me to court, he would look like it was like one of those things that's so embarrassing, you know? It's like, here's my dad, he's got all these fucking coke fucking scabs on his face, all coked out, barely conscious and shit. Like one of those things too about like cocaine is like, imagine seeing somebody like as tired as you could possibly be. Right? This is the kind of weird shit that's like what you see and stuff, right? Imagine seeing somebody like as tired as they could be, right? And then 2 minutes later, you know, they're hip hopping, bopping around. And it's like, what the fuck is that shit? Because I remember seeing my dad one time, like, just looked like he had been up for days and shit, all out of it, tired as fuck. It's like, and then it was probably like 5 minutes, but he comes back out of the room like 5 minutes later, and boy, he was ready to go. And it was weird because when I was a kid, my dad always had that personality. He was always kind of like walking, skipping around. I could tell you like a funny story. Is like one time my dad took me and my brother to Disneyland, and so we went to Disneyland, and my dad's always bopping around. He's got all this energy and stuff, right? Because I'm not a kid. I'm not thinking, oh, he's on coke and shit, right? I didn't know. You just think, oh, he's kind of, my dad's got a lot of energy and shit. Shit. That's some funny shit. But so my dad took me and my brother to Disneyland, and that was the first time he had taken us to Disneyland, because we used to go to the movies, we do that, but we hadn't gone to Disneyland, but because we live close to Disneyland. I've been to Disneyland many times and shit, right? But so he takes us to Disneyland, and then the next day he had such a good time because he was all coked out and having a good time, and it was so fun because it's Disneyland, it is fun, right? And so the next day he says, hey, you want to go again? It's so funny. funny shit when you look back upon it now, right? And so he says, you want to go again? And so I was like, all right, I'll go. But then my brother's like, no, I don't want to go. But so then me and my dad, we went again. We went to Disneyland the next day, right? And then so we were on the there's these these cars, these little bucket cars that hang from it's a cable tram thing that pulls you. You know, it's a cable. It's like a cable car thing. You're hanging from that little car, and it takes you all the way across the park. You're like on this side of the park. It's right there by Space Mountain is where you get on it. Right there, there's the ride there. And it's right over by Space Mountain. And you get on that ride, and then it takes you, you're up above. So you're like 20 feet up in the air. Different parts might be 30, you know, something like that. But you're up in the air, and you're going over the whole park, and it takes you through the Matterhorn. You go through the mountain and shit, go through the Matterhorn. And so you're up there, and it's on cables. So my dad, I'm not even thinking, he's just always hype. It's just, this kind of shit's like where my dad was really smart, but he was also really stupid. This is like these things in life. So my dad, he starts swinging the cart that we're on that little bucket thing, and he's like swinging it, and it's like, how can you, I think back now, and I'm like, dude, here you are, you got your kid in the fucking cart thing with you. You're an adult, he's smart. He was like on the college, he was into chemistry and shit. He knew he was into fucking shit like that, right? So you would understand basic physics of what the elements of the environment and what you're dealing with and shit, right? You would think, but no. That's why I'm saying my dad was smart and stupid. There's weird things about him. So my dad starts like swinging the fucking cart. Ooh wee, this is a ride, let's swing it. And so we're 20 feet above the ground and shit, right? And he's swinging the fucking cart thing. And he starts swinging it pretty severe, where he's swinging it, right? And then there was a speaker in the car, which was weird. I didn't even know and shit. And then all of a sudden the speaker comes on. The voice says, "Stop swinging the cart." Whoa, right? Whoa, shit. And then when we got off of the ride, there was Disneyland security waiting for us and shit, right? So then they took me and my dad. We had to follow them to the police off. They have like a cop thing in Disneyland where cops, there's like a police station there. I had never seen that before and shit. But so they went there. I don't know if they gave him a ticket or whatever, but then they let us go about our business. But that's the kind of shit, it's like where he almost killed me. I was thinking, damn, fucking, he almost killed me and shit, right? Disneyland, motherfucker. But that's where my dad's like smart, stupid, it's weird shit, right? And then like, so when I moved him out to the area where I was at, he had because he was a blow it and shit, but he had a job at a warehouse, and this is like the stupid shit where he's smart and stupid. And it was the end of the day, and there was a gate that needed to be closed, and that wasn't normally his job. And the guy he was working with said, "Hey, you're going out, can you close that gate over there?" Just because they were closing up, trying to get out of there, right? And my dad had never done it before, and it was a big gate because it's a big property with warehouse type of thing. So my dad goes over to close the gate, and he thought that it was two gates that met in the middle. This is kind of shit where my dad's stupid, some of this shit. It's like, dude, how did you not just see what was going on? He just dumb. But so it was two gates met in the middle, and my dad thought it was one gate that went all the way across, right? So my dad's pulling the gate like he's going to take it all the way to the other side, right? Shit, right? So he's walking with the gate, and then he's walking, and then he turned back and looked, and the back of the gate was like 4 feet out of the wall. And he was walking with it, and it was supposed to stop, right? But it didn't stop. It just kept coming, and he pulled it right out the wall. It just, because there's supposed to be a stopper thing or whatever, wasn't there. So he said he turned and looked back, and the gate was like 4 feet from the wall, and then the gate fell on him. And it would have killed him. It would have crushed him. He was hurt pretty bad. And he almost died. Luckily, the other guy that had told him to close the gate came over and checked. Because if the guy wouldn't have checked on him, he would have been pinned there, and it most likely would have killed him and shit, right? But so that happened to my dad, and that was like the last job he had. And so he got some money for that. He got. It was kind of the thing too when it happened. And I was telling him, dude, you have to call a lawyer. This is not you don't have a fucking option. This is the way the world works. You have to fucking call a lawyer. You were hurt. You have to. And it's like, you have to, because you're going to have problems in your life. Now you need, this is why it's up for and shit, right? And so he called, but he always thought like on that kind of thing, this kind of shit with like my dad. He thinks when I'm telling him to call a lawyer, he thinks I'm like, oh, you need to call a lawyer, you're going to get money, I'm going to get paid. He thinks I'm always thinking about myself. This kind of weird shit, it's like when even my dad completely misjudges me, And it's like, so when you people see like the way that I look at everybody, it's like, dude, I don't trust you people. Motherfuckers are faking it. You know, they're always putting up a front, and even if they think they're smart, the reality of the nature of their inner person of who they are and shit, right? So this is kind of all the shit is like the weird shit that I had to deal with this shit all my life. Like one stupid little thing, my one friend that lived down the street from me who had a really good family. And he's like mom, dad, all American, really fucking good family and shit. They had money, everything was good, right? And so one of the things my dad used to say, because he would take us out to the movies, and so my friend, he would come with us on the weekends. We would always go to the movies. So my other friend was with me and my dad a lot and shit, right? And so my dad, one of the times, a lot of things he would say is, you guys are ending up bums on Skid Row. Like, he would say that a lot, right? You guys are going to end up bums on Skid Row. Like, that's the kind of shit. That was a good, thanks, Dad, right? That's like fatherly advice I got as a kid, right? You're going to be a bum on Skid Row. But he used to say it so much as it didn't mean nothing to me. It was just a stupid joke and something stupid my dad would say. But my other friend who had a really good family, I didn't know that he actually, like, it affected him a little bit. That he did, when my dad was saying that it affected him too, because he had heard it so much too and shit, right? So when we were like adults, and my friend became, last time I had known that friend and shit, he was LAPD and shit, right? Last time I had known what job he was doing and stuff, right? So last time I had seen him, we were adults and shit, right? He was probably doing all right and stuff. He was gonna do all right. He played football in high school. He was, he was all American dude and shit, right? And he had everything going for him. He never had any problem. He was definitely gonna be all right in the world. But so like I wouldn't even think that the bum on Skid Row would have affected him. But then so that was one thing that I had seen him when we were adults and shit, right? And he had said to me, he's all, yeah, I see your dad. I'll tell him, fuck you, I ain't no bum on Skid Row. He had said something like that. And I was like, whoa, that had affected you? I'm like, wow, I was surprised that would have affected him and shit. But it did. So I was shocked that he had said that, That was just like those weird things. That's what I'm saying, that how it was being around my dad, like the kind of person he was, right? So when we moved, so my dad, like I said, he got some money from when he got hurt. And then a few years after that, he has all this money, and I know what he was doing is he was scoping for prostitutes and shit. I know that this is what he was doing. He would go out at night and drive around in LA and shit, and he had some money and shit, and I know he was picking up prostitutes. I know who the kind of person he is. That's what he was doing. So one night, he crashes his car. He crashes his car into a parked car, right? Because he was starting to get into, his mind was starting to play with him. He's starting to get into that early stage of the Alzheimer's stuff, right? So he crashed his car, and then the hospital calls, and then I went and picked him up and shit. I had to go out there and pick him, and if I didn't go get him, the hospital was not going to release him because they had said he's starting in the dementia, he's got some problems or whatever. And so they were not going to release him. That's it. They are kidnapping him. They were like, you are not allowed to live on your own anymore. That's what was going to happen. That's what happened and shit, right? So I had to go get him. If I didn't go get him from the hospital, then that's it. They had control of him, and he was going to be enforced into some kind of assisted living. But he was like, really, his body still, even right now, it's part of one of the things that's causing so much problem is that he's still strong. And so now he's just fighting me. And you guys don't even understand. It's like, how difficult it is to take care of, like, I'm sure some of you people understand and stuff, right? But it's like, when you're taking care of somebody and all they're doing is fighting against you and trying to hurt themselves. He just wants to jump on the floor. He's going to get hurt. If I let go, boom, he's hitting the floor. There's no doubt about it. He's going to fucking jump on the floor, crash down, boom, it's going to get bad. That's what's going to happen and shit, right? So that's one of the reasons, like, in the morning and shit, it's like, okay, well, I've just cleaned up my dad, and I just had to deal with this fucking shit, after I fed him and stuff, and I do all this stuff, and then he fucking is just screaming and fighting when I'm trying to clean him and stuff, and do all this stuff. It's so hard, and the screaming, it's really tough, and then I come in here, and I usually take that aggression out on the fucking sportswear community, motherfuckers, anybody. And I just get really mad when people won't help, when then people won't do anything and shit, right? Because it's like I'm just in a bad place and shit, right? But so, like I was saying, when I moved him out here, we had to. I was buy a house. I'm gonna buy a house. The only so like I said, because I don't make any money because my dad was always resistance. He never did anything to assist me to make sure that it's like, okay, well, let's go get this taken care of. Make sure that you're getting paid. So it's just none of that shit. I've never got anybody. And then so luckily at that time, when he moved out here, this is like 3 years after, this is like around 2011 and shit, right? So it was like after the 2008 housing crisis. And then when you get to like the 2011, because everything had crashed and the prices had just crashed, and then nobody was financing any houses. So there was a good couple year period there where the market was just dead, right? And so the neighborhood that I moved into, it was during the boom and shit of that 2008, the housing boom stuff. They were building an entire new neighborhood because I live in the desert, so there's still developments being built and shit at that time, right? So the development, it was a development I wouldn't even look in this area because the houses were way too overpriced. They were much more than I knew that I would have had any option and shit, right? And then sure enough, though, at the time when he was out here, and then there was one house, the last house that was built in that development before they completely stopped. And then it was sitting there for like a year. It hadn't even sold. It was a brand new house and hadn't sold for like a year. So they kept dropping the price, right? So they had dropped it down to like 179, and then I came in and with my dad's money and shit, right? So we came in and got it for 158,000 cash, right? Which, you know, so now it's easily worth over 300,000, like what it's worth now and shit, right? So, but it was a good, cause I did the best, the kind of things, like I did the best fucking possible thing possible. I secured a house to give us fucking security and shit, right? I secured my dad's money to make sure I couldn't spend it, I couldn't blow it. Plus, we got a good deal, so that would inevitably be an investment and shit, right? So my dad's worth more money now than he was when he moved out here, and that's with me not even having a job. I don't even have a job, so it's not like I have any extra money and shit, right? So then we had to close up all his bank accounts, and then we spent all the money on the house. So then the money that he did have in his bank accounts, his banks just instantly boom. He had like 3 accounts, and we spent all the money, and we closed the 2 accounts and converted it just into 1 account. And then because we did that, it was the Bank of America. Somebody at Bank of America called the protective services people, whatever thing, and they started a case. An actual, like a criminal case, saying we were taking advantage of my dad, we're spending all his money, and it's like, oh yeah, and so that's the thing about this house, it's in his name and shit, right? So it's like one of those things that my name is on it, is that after he passes away, then my name is on there, and I'll get the house when he passes away and shit, right? But I'm in no hurry to do that. And that's the thing with the left were trying to steal the house from me. Like, this is the kind of shit, it's like, just this one thing is like, shows, it's like, any person that would vote Democrat, you have to be the dumbest, like especially the people in the ghetto that are poor. They're the dumbest motherfuckers that ever could be. The fucking liberals tried to pass a bill, and then they said that in the situation, because the way the law works, like Trump said, hey, if it's your family shit, they've already paid taxes on that shit. That's yours. Trump was doing that shit, right? And then Hillary Clinton comes out and says, oh yeah, well that sure is going to benefit him a lot. And what do you mean it's going to benefit him? He has to die in order to get that benefit. So how is it so beneficial to him and shit, right? She's like, oh, well that's going to benefit him. Oh, so just the fact that his family gets to benefit off this is America. We all benefit the same fucking way. Just the fact that his family is going to benefit off that, you're going to negate the fact that the people who are poor, you're going to take their houses now because you think that, because you don't want Trump to get a little bit extra money. I mean, the disgusting, the horrible, disgusting fucking nature of these motherfuckers. So there was a bill that was going on that the Democrats were doing, because they're moving to this Agenda 2030 shit. And one of those things is they say you'll have nothing and you'll be happy. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. So they're doing shit they're doing that shit, right? So one of these laws that they were trying to pass, and I don't think it passed, but they were trying hard. But what happened was even a couple of the Democrats, there was 2 of the Democrats stood up and said, fuck that. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're not taking people's houses and shit. So what the rule is like in the situation where like I get the house when my dad passes away, right? So at the time when my dad passes away, the way it's supposed to be is that the house becomes mine, and then that's it. It's mine. I don't have to pay any taxes until I sell it. If I sell the house, then I have to pay taxes, which that's the way it's always been. But so the Democrats were saying, no, when the person dies, the house doesn't just transfer to me. I have to pay taxes on it at that time. I have to pay taxes right at that time, which is a huge chunk of money, which, like I said, and I'm here taking care of my dad for all these fucking years and not making a dollar. So, like, there's a couple $100,000 that the government didn't have to fucking pay and shit, but they don't care. They just want to pay everybody, and they throw money out in the system. It's just some bullshit. It's like, fucked up shit. And that's all stuff too, because it goes back to when I was a kid. People don't know. It's like, what happened? Like, this shit's like, I was in Hollywood from 18 to 19. I'm working as, like, this kind of shit that goes with my dad, and it goes with the government shit, all this stuff, right? So I'm in Hollywood trying to be an actor at 18 to 19, working as extra. And then I learned the basics of the business from being an extra, and I learned about getting an agent, having an idea, got some headshots, go get an agent, you go get some real auditions, right? So that's what I did. I got a real agent, a Hollywood agent. I had an agent. Sent my pictures in, and the agent straight out told me, the thing is like, because if you see me, I look young. So when I was young, I really looked young. But so the thing was, is like, she's like, oh, you're cute. She's like, you're cute. And she straight up told me, she says, look, she says, you're 19. And she says, a lot of the jobs that are out here in Hollywood, they need people that are like 19, that are adults, that can play roles of like high school kids and shit, because then the movie company doesn't have to pay for tutors and shit, right? Because there's different rules with minors and shit, right? So what they need is people that are adults that still can play those roles, right? So she just flat out told me, I can get you work. That's just all there's to it. I can get you work because you have that going for you. You're cute, and fucking you're an adult, and you look young, right? And so I was gonna get that's it. I got an agent. I was gonna go into Hollywood, start being an actor and shit, but I didn't have a car at that time. My friend from Iran, that kid, he like I said, his family had money and shit, right? So he always had, this guy always got through in life and shit. There's always stuff like that, people helping me. So his family had money and shit. So we would, when we worked as extras, we could always get on the same job and shit, right? So every job I got as an extra, he was working with me, and he would drive me. He would drive me everywhere we go and shit, right? He even drove me to go get my agent and shit, right? He helped me a lot. But then I needed a car. I had to have a car. So I asked my dad, I told him, look, I got an agent and shit, right? And then my dad's like, no, they're trying to scam you. That's just some scam. They're trying to sell you photographs, like this kind of shit. It's like, dude, I'm in LA. Haven't you seen? I've been working for a year in fucking Hollywood. I've got paychecks. I'm making money in Hollywood for the past year, and now this is a scam. I don't know what I'm doing, because that's what my dad is always. You don't know what you're doing. This is a scam. You don't know anything. It's like weird shit, right? And so my dad was hooked on coke at the time and shit, right? So it's like, and he's blowing all this money on cocaine and shit. Can't give me fucking a couple $1,000s so I can get a used car so I can go fucking try this, you know? My only one opportunity. No. Jeez, boy, I must have been talking a long time because my battery's going dead, and it was mostly fully charged and shit, right? So yeah, I'll just tell you that story real quick. So I asked my dad for a car. He wouldn't get it for me. So then I'm like, I stopped the Hollywood stuff, and then I'm like, well, what do I do now? And then all he ever was bitching is, go to school, right? So I was like, I don't know. So then I found one of those, the colleges, the business college, right? It was called United College of Business in LA. There was a thing and shit. So I went there, and I was going to learn computer diagnostic repair, CDR technician and shit. I was going to get trained, but it was a school. You had to pay for it. It was like $5,000 or whatever for the ship. So you have to sign the contract and shit, right? But so then I signed the contract to go to the school, because I'm like trying to do the right thing and shit, right? And then a few months of me going into the school closed down, went out of business. Like, well, if there was even an option that the school was going to close down, don't you think you guys should have disclosed that to me before I signed the contract? Bullshit, right? But then you find out that contract that I'm signing, that student loan, that's backed by the government. So the government, by their saying that this is legit, I trusted them, and then they backstabbed me and fucking kicked me out. I wasted 3 months of school time going to that school, totally wasted time. But now I got a debt. They're trying to charge me for the time I went to the fucking school, which is bullshit. It's not real. But because the technicalities, I can't fix it. So, and it's still there today. I still have that student loan on my fucking books there. It's still there today. It's still there. They never fixed anything for me. Never did nothing. The government never did anything for me. Bullshit motherfuckers. Like I said, then I come out here by my house, my dad, next thing you know, I got a case opened up on me again. He's trying to say I'm stealing my dad's money and shit, and it's because of stupid bank and shit. And it's like, dude, I secured his money. You guys are the ones trying to take control of his money, giving him pennies on the dollar for fucking interest, doing nothing. I doubled his fucking money and shit. I invested his money. I did the right thing. I secured his finances, so now we don't have to pay rent. I secured his fucking well-being because now we own a home. We got ownership privileges, being real Americans. Did everything right, you know? And nothing ever for me and shit. I don't get fucking nothing. Nothing's never worked. So like I said, I've been working with those fucking past 10 years, and the people, you know, all the people showing the cards, they expect me to fucking show these cards. It's like, dude, I don't have $1. I can't make money unless I'm gambling on sports, which I don't have the time to do. Like right now, we're in the fucking basketball. I have made money off basketball playoffs for the fucking past 20 years. That's where I made all my fucking extra money. But my mental state and my time, I can't get out to even go to the casino to make bets, which means I can't even watch the games. I can't have any enjoyment because it's like withdrawals. I can't be watching the games when I need to be making bets, and I can't do any of that shit. So I'm like on all those places, and I try to make these videos trying to say, can any of you dumb motherfuckers at least help me with my Michael Jackson story? And I still can't get no fucking help for that, alright? So my battery's going. Fuck all you motherfuckers. That's really how it goes and shit in the world. You people wondering why I'm so mad and shit. It's like, well, dude, I'm fucking pissed. And shit. There's all kinds of bullshit and shit, right? And I'm still the nicest guy. I don't care how much I yell at you motherfuckers. I am the fucking best person here. I'm the nicest guy. Smarter than all you motherfuckers. Fuck everybody and shit. Fuck off.